guys, I'm Yusma and today I'm going to share with you a video on how I painted this figurine of Mahasthamaprapta. So this Mahasthamaprapta, if you go to Buddhist temples, you will usually find three gods, which is Mahasthamaprapta, which is the first one. She will usually hold the lotus stem. And in the middle will usually be Buddha, and the third one will be Guan Yin. She will usually hold a vase because Mahasthamaprapta and Guan Yin look very similar. Most of the difference is Mahasthamaprapta will be holding the lotus root, whereas Guan Yin will be holding like a vase of some sort. So this will be one of the three gods. This is actually the first piece, which I will share with you guys later on the other two pieces on how I paint them. But for now, it's just Mahasthamaprapta. A lot of layering for this involved to really bring out because the thing about figurines is very complicated in the sense that if you spray paint, especially when it comes to spray painting is it gives a very nice flawless application. But the problem is it goes everywhere. You cannot control it, and that's why you need masking fluid and lots of masking tape. So that's generally what happens, and you have to make sure that you properly mask it so the paint won't overflow into it, and there's a lot of work going on. I had apparently my paint was too watery, so it seeped in the masking tape and it just kind of contaminated the rest of the painting, so I had to do a lot of patchwork in the end, but it's alright, I managed to get it done. So it was a bit of a challenge, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. So yeah, I'll show you guys the process, so please enjoy.
For figurines, I want to apply that really smooth primer, so I use an airbrush to apply it, and I did like 5 layers because airbrush you have to thin it down. And then I started painting the petals, and I also applied the highlights, which I'll do for the bottom petals, and then I do a second layer for the top petals as well. Because my airbrush range is not that small, I'll have to kind of apply the shadows as well as the highlights manually using a brush because my airbrush range is just too big. I can't spray paint the highlights nicely, so I have to manually paint the shadows with a paintbrush. So now that I'm done with the petals, I'm using a masking tape to cover it because I'll spray the bed of the lotus green. And I can use masking fluid, but I prefer masking tape because it's a lot easier to control. Although the downside is that masking tape is very rigid, whereas masking fluid is very flexible. For this part, I'm using masking fluid because I don't really have much of a choice because there's a lot of intricate parts like in between the toes and the cloth, so yeah. Then I start painting the background and foreground. I start dry brushing the foreground white to really bring out that texture because the foreground is a lot of texture going on there, so I try to enhance it. Then I paint the petals of the lotus behind Mahasthamaprapta's head. First I paint it white and then I go over it with pink, and then I dry brush the highlights on it. So I also apply newspaper to block in, so when I paint the fabric it won't affect the background or my progress. So I start with a kind of like a mid-tone gray as I slowly move lighter and lighter towards white. Lastly, I highlight the very edge of the fabric with pure white. This one really does make a difference. It really gives that crisp look. For most part, I paint the edge a really bright solid color. For the fabric is like platinum white. And then I also paint the inside of the fabric bronze and highlight that with gold. It's kind of like those really nice like tuxedo suits. Like on the inside of the tuxedo, you see like there's like gold fabric or some sort of pattern inside. It makes it very nice and subtle if you notice it. Putting in all the lines and highlights to it. So now I'm painting the skin tone, and it's kind of like the same thing because the airbrush range is very big. So for the highlights of the skin tone, I had to use dry brushing. Very soft application of it really gives that smooth transition of paint. And I also block in the flat colors of the lotus root that she's holding up, which I will dry brush light green as well because there's a lot of texture going into that root. Paint the flower as well, and the hair, and also her crown. For the hair, I kind of dry brush it a little bit of white, just a little bit, because I don't want to do too much on it. It'll start looking like old gray hair. So just a touch of it. Now I'm dry brushing the lotus, as well as the flower later on. A tip though, you see me using newspaper to mask the background, but use a clean paper because newspaper, they have ink on it, so it can actually transfer on the sculpture itself, and then you have to clean up the mess that it's done. So recommend to use a clean paper and not newspaper. Now I'm doing the highlights of the face. I'm dry brushing it, trying to make sure to wipe off all the excess paint and do a very slight application of it to give that smooth transition, because if you kind of press it too hard, you can see the brush marks, and that's not what we want. So after taking out everything, there's a little bit of errors, like the paint kind of seeped through the masking fluid and masking tape. So I'm just kind of correcting everything again. So I'm just enhancing the lotus color with the purple, as well as the lotus bed, because some of the blue and brown kind of seeped into it, so I have to correct it again. And lastly, all that's left is the swirly background, which I'll cover it with bronze and gold. I'm covering it with bronze at first, and for the bottom half it's bronze, and I will highlight them with some gold, and then the top half will be mostly gold in its pure form. So
So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did and you want more, please give a thumbs up along with subscribing and commenting. That would really mean a lot to me, because knowing because it's really nice to interact with you guys. You can follow me on the following social media sites, which I'll list down below in the video description. I also have Patreon, which I will share my full unedited version along with audio, or the longer version, but that one comes without audio. So you can just you can check out my Patreon page to see what's available to you guys. And if you do choose to support me, that would mean a whole lot. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao.